But like at least the first two speakers, I'm from here. I grew up in what is now called Russell Woods. When I was growing up there, it was just Dexter Davison. But now with the gentrification going on in the city, it's Russell Woods. And so I'm here to talk to you. I'm going to come at a little bit of a different perspective. First, let me explain what CRA is, for those of you that don't know. CRA is the Community Reinvestment Act. It was instituted in 1977 to combat the effects of redlining in specifically low and moderate income communities. Let me see. There's an exam that banks actually have to go through every few years. As a matter of fact, we're being examined in June. It is divided into 50% lending, 25% investment, and 25% service. The lending test is actually where I think a lot of people, when they hear lending and hear community reinvestment, they have the idea that banks have to just go out and give out money, and that's not true. Generally speaking, and this is a generalization. I'm just so don't go look on YouTube or Google and be like, he didn't say all of that. I'm just giving you a very generalized explanation of the lending piece. The lending piece just says to banks that they have to prove that they made a good faith effort to find qualified borrowers in all the communities that they do business. So if a particular bank decides that they want to have an 850 credit score requirement for their loans, they can actually do that. They just have to prove that they sought to find qualified borrowers that meet that criteria in all the areas where they do business, with a specific focus on low and moderate income communities. Okay, the investment piece. Now, the investment piece, I like to say, is the easiest and hardest part of what we do. The investment piece looks at philanthropy specifically focused on supporting low to moderate income individuals, families, and communities. And so I don't have to keep saying low to moderate income. I'm just going to say LMI, okay? LMI, low to moderate income. I like to use Gleaners as an example. Gleaners, because of their mission, is a CRA qualified organization, which means if we give money to Gleaners, we get credit under the Community Reinvestment Act. Okay? The American Heart Association, which is a great organization, their mission is not specifically focused on low to moderate income individuals, families, and communities, so the money that we give to them is not necessarily CRA qualified. Now, I use the word necessarily because if the American Heart Association has a program that is specifically focused on low to moderate income individuals, families, or communities, and we support that specific program, we can still get credit under the CRA, okay? All right. The reason that that's the easiest and hardest part is, well, it's great and easy to give out money, right? We could, The hard part is, especially in CRA and especially in Southeast Michigan, there are so many qualified and great organizations doing important work in the community. So when I was in the banking center system and I was selling mortgages and car loans and stuff, I was handing out my cards like I was playing spades. Hey, call me. Now, I tend not to do that so much. I usually don't carry cards because now most new phone calls I get are unfortunately somebody I'm going to have to disappoint. Either I'm not going to be able to give them any money at all, or at least not as much money as they ask us for. Ms. Hankins will know all about that. More so, and again, I'm saying that more so to say, because you all know as small business owners and as with nonprofits, what you do is important to you. It's personal. So when somebody does not support you at the level you feel you should be supported, you take it personally. So I've really had to work on those conversations. So that people understand we have a limited budget and we cannot support everybody, unfortunately. So that is the service portion, that's the investment portion. And my favorite part of the exam is the service portion. The service portion is using the bank's brain power, and I'll explain that in a moment, to support LMI communities. Now, I use brain power to separate it from elbow grease. So using Gleaners again as an example, Comerica sends a lot of volunteers over to Gleaners. Most of those volunteers are working in the warehouse, sorting apples, lifting pallets, moving boxes, and so on. None of that volunteerism counts for CRA. Because although the organization is CRA qualified, those employees and the work that they are doing does not, because it is not linked to their professional skills and abilities. So if that same employee was there helping them I don't know, do their executive director search because they had some HR experience. That would count. If somebody was over there helping them redo their computer system because they have IT experience, that would count. That is the difference. Or somebody from our legal department was helping them review some contracts. That would count. So that is the difference between brain power and elbow grease. Everybody get that? Now, there's a subset, which is really my favorite part, which is financial education. You may have heard it called financial literacy, but we are trying to move away from the term literacy versus education because literacy has some connotations that we don't necessarily like. So with financial education, it's really just taking all of this stuff that I've learned over the 24 years, and let me take that back. In the 1 or 2 years at the bank, the one thing I realized is this stuff ain't hard. It's just we don't have the types of conversations that we need to have in our community and in our households to get that information. So once I figured that out, I was like, oh, I can go to Dexter and Davidson and talk about this in a way that people get. You know, it doesn't have to be all academic and scholarly. It's just, hey, you know the best way to protect your credit score? Pay your stuff on time. You know, don't let it get to 30 days. You know, you already took an L on the late fee. Don't take another L on your credit report. Get the money in by 30. You know, those sorts of things. Or guess what? Call them when you know you're going to be late. They might even work with you. You know, those sorts of conversations. And so that is CRA. So as it relates to corporate social responsibility, let me first, and thank you for setting up the cynical portion of it, let me say that coming from a large corporation like Comerica, people assume, much like what Mr. Williams said, you know, they do it because they realize, hey, there's good money in it. You know, if you make people like your organization, they're more likely to spend money with you. But let me take it away from that. Let's just take for granted that corporations tend to do what's in their best interest. What I would say to you as small business owners is plug into the people that have to do the work. Because just like a hospital, you know that a hospital's business model is making money to save people's lives, or at least to help people get healthier than they were yesterday, right? Forget about that. Worry about who the doctor is. Worry about who the doctor is. And in your case, that doctor is the financial professional at that bank. So get to know a banker. And if you already know a banker, get to know them better, because that is the person, regardless of what you think about the corporation and their motives, the banker is the person that is going to be the help to you. There's a lot of great information, a lot of great resources in banks that many of us don't know about. And the reason that many of us don't know about it is banks, for one, we can't market every little thing that we do. It's just we don't have the money, we don't have the budget, and you would turn the channel anyway. If I got up there and said, hey, I'm gonna spend 10 minutes telling you about CRA, you're like, click. And it's boring. I mean, the stuff generally, you know, I get it, it's boring, it's boring. That's the other part of my job, is to help keep banking from being boring. But anyway, the other part is we don't necessarily know what you need. Just like when you go to the doctor's office, you can't just walk past a doctor's door and they're like, oh, well, you got gout and high blood pressure and all of this. They can't do that just by looking at you. You have to have a conversation, right? Well, it's the same thing with you as a small business owner. You go in and you have a conversation or multiple conversations with your banker. Now, your banker may not be the expert in the specific thing that you need, but because it's a bank, somebody at that bank knows how to do what you're trying to accomplish. Now, let me be realistic with you. Ms. Hankins, you asked me to come up and be realistic, so I'm gonna be realistic. Every bank is not for everybody. Every product is not for everybody. So we get that, we understand that, we know that just like you shop for shoes and shop for computers, you're gonna shop for banks. What I would say to you is, look at who's doing the work. So we talk about corporate social responsibility, look past the PR campaign, look at what you see going on in the communities that you care about. Because no bank can be everywhere, but I would assume, and I'm pretty sure, that there's a bank somewhere that you care about. That's where you should start. As it relates also to small businesses, get to know not only your CRA person, and the reason I specifically mentioned CRA is because as part of CRA, oh, excuse me, that's my timer. I'm gonna jump off in just a second. Okay, as part of CRA, It is also, it's not only focused on LMI communities, it's also focused on small businesses with gross annual revenues of $1 million or less. So when we talk about financial education, me and many of my colleagues go out and speak at business groups. You know, so we can come out and give you free advice on, say, time management, because we know you spend so much time running your business that your business is often running you on the other side, right? So we talk about how to manage that time. We talk about how to search for resources, make informed decisions about banking products and all of those things. And that's all free. Banks are waiting for you all to call us and say, hey, come to our group and talk. But again, many of you would not necessarily know that because it's not the type of information that banks would normally advertise. But we're here for that today. Thank you for your time. I'm going to hang around as long as I can because I think I see some great questions about to bubble up out of the audience.
Can we get your business card?
Yes, I do have some business cards, yes. Thank you.
We have to have flexibility when we're sharing from the heart. And before we bring up our next speaker, we are going to take 5 minutes to do some Q&A for Mr. Cheatum, who's going to have to leave from Comerica Bank. So do you want to have a question that they would like to ask before he has to take off? If not, we'll continue the program. You want to come back to the podium, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, real simple question.
Yep.
Do you present to nonprofits who may have a youth group and then talk to that group about financial literacy? Talk to the youth.
Absolutely. So we do financial literacy at a bunch of different levels. So we can actually speak to anywhere from kindergarten to senior citizen. And so the thing that banks are hungry for is the audience. Because we know if we put up a sign that says Comerica's giving free financial education and we'll even buy you Papa Pizza, nobody's coming to that. Right. So what we do is we rely on our nonprofit partners to give us the audience, and then we come out and provide the content during some other event they might even have going on. So I've spoken at, I don't know, like church field days and all kind of stuff. So if you can give us an audience, a CRA qualified audience, we can come out and do the financial education. And CRA qualified, at least 51% of the people in the audience have to be considered low to moderate income. And we calculate that in a bunch of different ways, but we really rely on the nonprofit because the way it works is we do the work and then we report it to the federal government as part of our CRA exam. As long as we have documentation from the organization, that's all we need. And it's not like somebody from the government is going to come knock on your door and say, okay, you told us this, prove it. So one of the easiest ways to do it is schools because we can look at the free and reduced lunch statistics. Then if that doesn't work, we can go by neighborhood or we just take your best guess as long as you're willing to write it in a letter.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the subject matter of philanthropy,
Yes.
as you described,
Sure.
do you assist the nonprofits in setting up the CRA qualified audience for them? In other words, showing them how to go about putting together CRA?
Yes, the fancy word for that is technical assistance. So we help nonprofits with a lot of different things. The audience part is actually the easiest part, to be honest. But yeah, one of the other things that we do is we share best practices because, there's very, very few things that are new under the sun, and we have a wide range of relationships with a lot of nonprofits, so we can sometimes help what we call cross-pollinate great ideas and best practices.
Any more questions?
Okay.
Beyond CRA, what other things does Comerica Bank do for CSR? Is CRA the entire?
Well, no, and so that's the thing. I wanted to the thing that I'm most familiar with is CRA, but we, for example, in 2016, we had 64,000 hours of employee volunteerism. Again, not all necessarily CRA because we've done a lot of cleanups, we've painted benches, we've done work over at, for those who are familiar with Durfee Middle School and the work that's going on there, we've helped revamp their gym. None of that's CRA qualified, but that's also some work that we've done. So there's a lot. I don't want to shortchange us. What I can do is I can send you an infographic that has all the other stuff on there. All right.
Do you have your card?
Oh yeah, I hope I brought enough cards, but if not, Ms. Hankins can send out my information. We'll take one more?
We're going to take one more.
Okay.
Did anyone else before these two?
Yeah, because these two had already spoken. No other new questions?
Okay, so we'll take
Okay.
the one he had his hand up
Okay.
first.
Did I understand you to say that businesses that have less than $1 million of revenue
Of-
are automatically CRA?
Yeah, generally speaking. Now, I say, let's put it this way. you'd be hard pressed not to be CRA qualified. I can think of a very few, like if you're a diamond merchant and just haven't made your first $1 million yet, you're probably not CRA qualified per se. But generally speaking, the average small business, which is in most cases a community-based business anyway, is CRA qualified. Yeah. And as long as 51% of the people in the audience qualify, the whole group qualifies. So even if your particular business may not be, if you can sit next to 2 others that are, we qualify the whole group.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you. I wanted to